Right, we've got a full house tonight. This is wonderful. Well, welcome everybody to Gonzaga University. My name is Katie Blackburn, and I want to thank you for joining us here tonight to honor the achievements of this year's Emerging Leaders. For those of you not familiar with it, the Emerging Leaders program is offered to men and women identified within their organization as the rising talent or high potential employees in the company. It blends professional development learning with their practical experience, focusing on both individual and company goals. Tonight, you'll hear from all the participants, but also from the two other members of the Emerging Leaders Advisory Board, Mrs. Bridget Piper and Dr. Joe Albert. Both Bridget and Joe have played such an integral role in planning and executing every aspect of the program this year, and I want to take a moment to just thank both of them for their commitment. They're both incredibly humble too, so they'll kind of shush away the applause, but thank you so much. All right. Before we hear from the rest of the ELP crew, I'm going to take a few minutes and tell all of you what the Emerging Leaders actually did this year, what our program looked like, and some of the people we got to learn from. We began the year at Clearwater Lodge for our annual kickoff retreat. Joe Albert talked to the group about the importance of knowing our stories and how they inform our leadership. Then the participants went over the results of their 360 leadership assessment, and betting some of you in the room were asked to fill out that assessment for these participants, and I hope you were brutally honest. And in the morning, Dr. Heidi Scott from Learning Pursuits asked us, where do we want to go in our lives, and talked to us about the importance of vision for both our personal and work lives. We also heard from Bridget Piper on the importance of community involvement and offering our leadership strengths to the communities we live in. We started off our class sessions in January at Gonzaga with the important topic of self-leadership. We revisited our leadership stories and talked in depth about emotional intelligence and its place in our work roles. At lunch, we were honored by a visit from Dr. Thane McCullough, who shared his personal leadership maxims with all of us. Some of these maxims remain the most important takeaways for a lot of the participants. In the afternoon, our first CEO guest of the year was Mr. Dan Mahoney, former president and CEO of Renaissance Technology North America. He shared with the group his experience and lessons as the leader of this large organization through the devastating earthquake in 2011 in Japan, Renaissance home country. In February, we met at Integris Architecture for a day of effective communication, because who doesn't need that? Cher Desitel and Kristen Paul from Desitel Hagee Communications spent the morning with us, and in the afternoon, we had the opportunity to learn from Jeff Adams, the CEO of Horizon Credit Union. He shared with us how his organization has navigated a mortgage meltdown and continuing economic uncertainty, and how his values and the values of the company have not wavered in the face of very hard decisions. In March, we got to visit Horizon Credit Union headquarters to learn about productive conflict. Lunel Hott from Hott Strategies took the group through a great lesson in managing conflict and learning about how we all personally tend to deal with it. Betty Lethko, an ELP alumni, paid us a visit for lunch, and I remember her warning everybody how scary it is to give this presentation at this ceremony. So, our CEO guest for the afternoon was Mr. Phil Baker from Hecla Mining Company, who led us in on the very difficult task of leadership through the devastation at the Lucky Friday mine in Idaho. April session was held at the Avista Utilities headquarters, where we learned about developing subordinates. We heard from a panel of local human resource professionals sharing their thoughts on hiring and keeping engaged employees. Don Kopczynski stopped by to share with us a little bit about company culture at Avista and how they are working across departments and job titles for the betterment of the entire organization. After lunch, we had the chance to hear from Leanne Pelletier, retired CEO of Alaska Communications, who told us her story of rebuilding an executive lead team and board while trying to bring a company back to prominence. At our last group session in May, we talked about the importance of managing change. Dr. Earl Martin, Gonzaga's Executive Vice President, shared his experience with change, both in his career and in his personal life. We wrapped up the day by making our own personal change plans, taking all we had done through the year and setting our own goals to answer the question, why leadership and what do I want my leadership story to be? We live in a world where many people want to be leader, but few people want to do leader. They abandon the task when confronted with obstacles or fall quickly for failing to be authentic. This year, we were fortunate to learn from the people who do leader. Men and women who have stood at the front lines of leadership, weighed heavy decisions, communicated in a crisis, and stood by the people who work with them. All of this was complemented by theories, discussions, examples, and the resources to teach what is behind the actions, giving a name to exemplary leadership. In the Emerging Leaders Program, we really do believe with Warren Bennis that becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. It's precisely that simple, and it's also that difficult. With that, I'd like to invite Bridget Piper up here, who will share a little bit more about why we must develop leaders.
I'm going to call upon my cell phone. Siri, why is it important to develop leaders? Globalization, competition, entrepreneurship a priority. Oh, greed. Greed is not a leadership quality. No, that's so true. Aging CEOs. Oh, yeah. Baby boomers retiring. Got to build Bench Street. What? You have lots more? Well, Siri, gotta go. Bye. Click. Gonzaga's program, the Emerging Leader Program, is addressing really a growing need for training leaders. So much time is spent on training managers. That's important too. But many companies now are really investing in leadership. And they realize that old, what if the plane goes down with the CEO and the CFO and the COO, the C seats? What happens then? So companies are talking about training. We saw this develop years ago. I was a training manager at a bank in town, and I belonged to the ASTD, American Society for Training and Development. And they, you could always tell what was going to be on the horizon and what all the consultants were each company was going to be paying lots of money to big consultants to come in and do this next thing. And one of the next things was leadership. And in fact, I had taken the MOL program here, the Masters of Organizational Leadership, a goal of mine to complete before my 60th birthday. And I did do that and enjoyed that program very much. Some of you have been in that program. I felt that it not only provided me with some lifelong learning that I felt was just essential, as well as things I needed for work, because at my work we began to develop a leadership training program. And it's based slightly on the one like this one, but it does that same thing. And it helps us give people different experiences in the company, have them hear from different people. Try to learn some whacks on the head. I mean, are we going to keep doing the same thing, or are we going to become exceptional people? Exceptional people are the kind of people who, instead of cooking and using a recipe, and that's the way I do it, I am the person that failed at Rice Krispies once. Rice Krispie treats. and if you can imagine, that's almost impossible. But some people are the kind of people who can just look in the cabinet, see what's there, and create something from it. They say that's the kind of leader Bill Gates was, and I don't remember all the details of the kinds of Linux and the different servers that he was working with at the time, but that's how he operated. We need leaders who have an ability to network and learn from other people, and that's something I think people could see in this program, because you could see how valuable it is to hear from other people, other countries. Spokane's a little isolated, if you haven't noticed, and so we really do gain by networking with other people. I've been working with alongside around the new chancellor of the community colleges, Christine Johnson, and she brings an amazing ability with her, and that's her networking skills that she has. She has been asked to be on international task forces, national gatherings, and she brings to our community college that kind of resource so that she can tap into people to find some things that we can use here in Spokane. And she's being sought out as a leader. She also knows more people in town in the short amount of time that she's been here than I do, and that's not fair. We always thought it'd be hard to replace Gary Livingston, the CEO of the community colleges, and I think we have found his match in Christine Johnson, and she's one of those people. I also kind of like to, as it said in Katie's intro, I like to encourage people to get involved in the nonprofit world, because I feel that working in a community situation, whether you're a coach or a person serving on a committee or a board, really gives you an opportunity to do several things. It gives you a place to observe great leaders, as well as some that maybe aren't so great. We have, and maybe this isn't the best time to segue to this, but I think most of you have been reading the newspapers and know the brouhaha that's occurred in the museum, the MAC, Board of Directors and the Endowment Board. It's a very sad situation. They're trying to fire their executive director, and now that's gotten pretty contentious with the other two bodies, and they don't agree. Very sad situation, and some of that I think could have been stemmed. We don't know the whole story yet, so it's hard to continue to comment, but there are definitely some leadership lessons there. And many boards are very careful about whom they choose to be on the board, but a great way to get involved is to see if you can get on a committee. Of course, they'd love to have you on a fundraising committee or something like that. They always think your company, it's great to have people like you, our new leadership participants, because they want you to come be involved in theirs with your new ideas, your new thinking, and they also want maybe the quid pro quo of your company might buy a table at their fundraiser or something like that, so there's always that. But it gives you a great entree into what that nonprofit's about and what their struggles are, and honestly, it's like a microcosm for some of our businesses, and it gives you that opportunity to view that. It's also another good place to network and gain ideas from other people, and it's an arena to practice your own leadership. If you do become a coach on a team or a chairman or something like that, it gives you an opportunity to practice using your own style. As we learn, there is no one great style, your own style, as well as your leadership skills. So, Siri, are you still there? Yes, leadership is important, Siri. Thank you, thank you. Yes, I agree. Thank you. And thank you, participants, and your companies, and your families, and your mentors who are here today. It's been my pleasure to be a guide on the side while you've been going through this program. Thanks.
Thank you, Bridget. Now, for the very reason most of you are here today, we're going to hear from our participants who have been working very hard, refining and practicing and rehearsing their final presentations for you. So our first presenter tonight is Sarah Everett, the Associate Director of Financial Aid at Gonzaga University, where she manages the day-to-day operations. She's also the mom to 2 young kids and has brought a lot to the group this year. Please help me welcome Sarah Everett.
Thank you for the introduction, Katie. As Katie mentioned, I work here in the financial aid office at Gonzaga. Our job is essentially to help students find resources to fund their education. With over 7,000 students and $160 million of aid to award, it's a constant trial to keep up with the demands. This past academic year, my department was challenged by the university leadership to improve efficiency through optimization, really in response to the rapid growth the university has felt over the past decade or so. Essentially, the goal was to take the technical resources we already have and just make sure we're using them to their maximum potential. As I thought about a project for this ELP program, I figured this would be a good fit, very good way to stretch both my technical, but especially my leadership skills. In the past, our department has really lacked the knowledge, time, and expertise to take full advantage of our technical resources. Really, the major obstacle in this project has been challenging the way that we have previously accomplished our work. Just because it's the way we've always done it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best way to do it. That was a really big challenge for us to kind of overcome. For example, we have a process this past year that we had to evaluate as a result of a regulation change. Essentially, the goal of the project is to verify that students in online programs are in fact participating in the online programs through virtual coursework. To do this, I have a colleague that one by one looks up their participation individually for 1,000 students. You can imagine this is a very time-consuming project. It leaves a lot of room for error and just isn't a very efficient way to go about the work. Turns out nobody knew about this across the university, or at least nobody that we had asked. There has been a report that gets us at this very same information in less than 5 minutes. So what was taking 3 days of work each semester can be condensed into 5 minutes. You can imagine that finding out about this report was very frustrating, but it also was really promising because it didn't require any additional resources, any programming. It was just a matter of figuring out what to ask and who to ask to sort of get access to this. This illustration is just one of many processes that has room for improvement in our area. And it's a perfect illustration for really what I was trying to accomplish through the Stretch project. In January, I started off with a couple of low-hanging fruits. And I say that because we have electronic forms that we print, we would make handwritten notes on, and then take those same forms and scan them back into the computer. So it's not really hard to identify how that may not be the most efficient use of resources and time. We eliminated those by keeping essentially everything electronic. It's not really important how we eliminated them, but what was kind of exciting for me is that the solution to eliminate the printing of the paper was the invention of one of our financial aid counselors, and the staff's response to these new processes was really positive, despite the fact that it involved using a new piece of software, which can be really intimidating. It really set the tone for the entire year, and from a leadership standpoint, it helped gain buy-in. It was just a couple small victories to sort of check off our list and kind of have some accomplishments. So the ultimate goal is a culture shift in our organization where the entire team, not just the leadership, view things with an efficiency and optimization lens. And we can start to really cross off some of those projects where we can do better and find better ways to accomplish our work. It's especially challenging given the cyclical nature of our job. We have very busy times and times that aren't as busy. It's hard in those very busy times to step back and take a look. But this past awarding season, which is just wrapping up, we've identified a few other major processes that we can change and make better. When I think back about these past few months working on this project, it's really astonishing to think how much has been accomplished. I really couldn't have done it without the nudge and the guidance from the Emerging Leaders Program, and I feel so privileged to have had the opportunity to participate. I can't possibly convey all that I've learned in such a short time, but self-awareness, relationships, and just practical management tools are the things that I'm definitely going to be taking away and will be an asset for the rest of my career. It's been a pleasure to learn and collaborate with my ELP colleagues, my mentor Jeff Adams, and the program's facilitators, Katie, Bridget, and Joe. I'm especially grateful to my boss, Jim White, and our Executive Vice President, Marty Martin, for the nomination funding and allowing me to take the time to participate during our busiest season. Thank you again for your attention. And next, I'm pleased to introduce Liz Andrews, who is a manager at Avista and has worked there for over 19 years.
Thank you, Sarah. I was saying earlier, I wish I'd worn shorter heels, and then you couldn't have to see me at all. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Liz Andrews, and I'm a manager at Avista Corporate. I've been over 19 years, and in the last 12 of those in our state and federal regulatory department. For the last several years, my main duties have been managing the company's electric and natural gas general rate case filings in our 3 service jurisdictions, Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. In early 2010, I was assigned several direct reports, both peers and new employees. So when I began to decide about what my stretch project should be for this program, I thought about what over the last several months have been keeping me up at night. It wasn't how to make our cases more efficient, but how my team was functioning under my lead. As reflected on the past 2 years as a manager and the difficulties I had experienced, and frankly there were times that were not so easy, I realized that the most important project that I could do, providing the best value for myself and for Avista, was for me to develop my leadership abilities and become a better manager for my team and building my team's cohesiveness. So my project focuses on improving my leadership skills. As I've hinted, 2011 was a particularly difficult year for me as a new manager. I had recognized that my group was not functioning as it should. I had to review the fitness of my direct reports and make some difficult changes and decisions. I recognized that to make the necessary steps to be a better leader, I needed the tools to determine where my leadership skills were strong and where they were lacking. So to work through this project, the first portion was the ELP course itself fit great within these goals. Specifically, the 360 review that Katie mentioned earlier of my managers, peers, and direct reports to help me focus on my strengths and my weaknesses. Topics such as communicating effectively, productive conflict, and development of direct reports was especially valuable. Second, I enlisted the help from one of Avista's HR business partners, who to date developed and provided some team training, completed one-on-one meetings with each of my direct reports to help me ferret out my leadership issues and consolidate those issues for me to work on. And among other things, I am currently holding weekly team meetings to improve my communication gaps. And of course, I've been seeking assistance from others, such as my mentor, Preston Potratz, there he is, from Integris Architecture, and others that I rely on for leadership advice, such as my boss, Kelly Norwood, my friend and coworker, Linda Gervais, and of course my family, my husband Tim and my 8-year-old daughter Molly, who I would like to thank very much for their support and patience over the last several months. It has been very much appreciated, and I couldn't have done it without you. At first, my project was getting my team back on track or improving the team's cohesiveness, maybe coming up with a vision. But as I moved forward through this course and I began to reflect on what I was learning, a few important things came to light. Number one, I realized that this project really starts with me. that for a while at least is all about me. And I don't know about you, but I don't get to say that very often. Second, I realized that although I needed to correct my leadership weaknesses and hone on my strengths, I have to stay true to who I am. Third, I need to continuously work hard to build and sustain my team's confidence and their trust. And lastly, which will be nothing new to most of you, I'm sure, that effective communication is key, and how easy it is to miscommunicate and then the resulting conflict. I have a short story I want to share with you that I think about when I think of how easy it is to miscommunicate and the conflict that can ensue. As I mentioned, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and when she was 3 years old, she had ear infections and we needed to go see her doctor. And so I sat her down because I knew she was kind of scared of doctors. I said, Molly, we're going to see Dr. Abbott, and he's just going to look in your ears, and no shots, it'll be fine. And she got kind of excited, and I didn't really understand that at the time, but I didn't really pay attention to it. So we go to the doctor, and he came in, he visited for a few minutes, and he stepped away. And he was going to come back, and I looked at Molly, and I could see that she was very upset. And I said, Molly, what is the matter? And she says, Mom, I thought we were coming to see a rabbit, and he does not have long ears. So when I think about that story, I think about how easy it is to miscommunicate, whether you're at home or at work, and how when you think, how could whatever happened possibly have come out of what I stated, I remember this story. So just some concluding thoughts. This course has provided me the opportunity to learn that there is a difference between managing and leading. And although this has been a very difficult and challenging project for me because it's very personal, I have spent a lot of time in the last several months trying to evaluate what wasn't working and how to fix it. But I recognize the importance of this project in order to become the best leader that I can be, because I owe that to myself, my team, and Avista, and that this is a career project, one that I will continue as I strive to be a better leader throughout my career. So before I finish, I would like to say a few additional thanks to those I've already said. First, to Diane Quincy for recommending this class to me at just the right time. And of course to Dr. Albert, Katie, and Bridget for providing such an enjoyable and important learning opportunity. Thank you. For our next speaker, I would like to present Kathy Conway, who is Director of Branch Operations at Horizon Credit Union. Her job involves overseeing the operations of their 16 branches and call center. With Kathy's many years of experience managing employees, I have appreciated the examples and stories she has shared with the class of her own experiences, and she has been a pleasure to meet and work with in class. So please welcome Kathy Conway.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, we'll see if I can find the right button. There we go. All right, so it's the age-old question. What came first, the chicken or the egg? At Horizon Credit Union, our question is, did service come before selling or selling before service? We think it's a combination of both. Service is our business. Credit unions were formed as cooperatives in the 1930s with the mission to be not for profit, not for charity, but for service. So how is it we find ourselves here today trying to find ways to sell that service? Today looks a lot different than the 1930s. There's a Banker Financial on every corner. We all have checking, we all have savings, we all have credit cards. So what's going to make us stand out from our competition? We believe it's the quality of service that we provide and the relationships that we build. Service and sales is a primary initiative for our credit union. We don't believe the two can be separated or that one is more important than the other. They work together to create the experience and build the relationships with our members that are beneficial on both sides. So my stretch project was to develop methods and tools to measure the progress that we are making in shifting our current friendly, transaction-oriented environment to that of a service sales, still friendly environment that really helps us expand on that experience. It involves identifying key factors that establish benchmarks and goals to measure the progress we are making. During these past months, I've worked with senior managers in our organization, and we have identified 5 key areas that we feel, when focused on, will drive the results that we are looking for. The 5 areas we have identified are the number of loans per new member, the number of cross-sold loans per member, checking account penetration, debit card penetration, and the number of products per new member. Now that these are identified, I work closely with our business intelligence department to gather the data to create reports and track the progress. We've used this information to create historical patterns and to create benchmarks for setting branch goals based upon the metrics. With the data now available, we are also in the process of creating an application that will create a real-time dashboard for our branch managers so that they can look on a daily basis if they want to see where they are in reaching their branch goals. So our next steps. The next steps we will be working on is establishing a scoreboard of goals for each branch to meet using the 5 areas we've identified. We'll continue to monitor and adjust the categories and benchmarks as we collect data and as we can see what the activity is generating. We'll begin assessing activities in the branches which may conflict with the goals of relationship building and looking for efficiencies to streamline the processes to free up staff time for member activities. So we want to know where they're spending their time. We'll be continuing the process by always evaluating the resources that we have and reallocating or building as needed and findings determined. I'd like to thank Jody Olson, Jeff Adams, Mark Newman, and my mentor Janet Gullickson for providing me this opportunity and support to participate in the Emerging Leaders program. It's truly reinforced my belief that there is a difference between leading and managing and how important good leadership is to success. It's been a rewarding experience. Thank you, Dr. Albert, Katie, and Bridget. It's been amazing the time we've spent in these classes, the presenters that we've had, and all of the time spent with my classmates has been very enlightening. As leaders, we never stop learning. And I understand that it is not always an easy path, and that to be an effective leader, you truly sometimes have to cultivate trust over like. You don't get to be the popular girl all the time. I look forward to continue building and fine-tuning my leadership skills and sharing my knowledge and passion for this topic with others. Thank you. So I have the pleasure of introducing John Vicentainer. John is a project administrator and has worked for 20 years for MW Consulting Engineers. I have enjoyed sharing time in our classroom with John and hearing his stories. Thank you, John. Welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. MW Consulting Engineers is a mechanical and electrical engineering firm that specializes in HVAC, air conditioning, plumbing, security, power, lights, and communication systems for commercial buildings. In fact, you're sitting in one of our projects right now, the kennel. My job as project administrator is to help coordinate the efforts within our office in providing construction documents to our clients. At some point in all our lives, we all have had a dream to aspire to be something other than ourselves that can make a difference in our world. For just a moment, imagine with me one of your dreams. How do you feel when you think of your dream? Do you get excited? Do you feel inspired? Or maybe just get charged up? Dreams give us hope about the possibility of something special happening within our life. I would like to share a story of a dream I had. It all began in the 90s. I discovered that I had a passion for learning about being the best person I could be. My dream was to see myself going to Gonzaga. A few years ago, I was searching for the next step in my adventure, and I stumbled across the Emerging Leaders program. The program appeared to be a perfect fit for me. I decided at that point I had nothing to lose, so I started pursuing my dream. My stretch project originally was to develop a quality control program for our engineers to perform on their drawings prior to issuing the construction documents to our clients. As I began my research, My project seemed to blossom pretty quickly into something much bigger than I could have imagined. My project grew into a staff development program. This program centers around our staff having the opportunity to share their knowledge and skills with everyone else within the firm. The premise is to have a staff member mentor another staff member along in their career development. We also have staff members that are called coaches, and these coaches will assist the mentors on training of individual specific tasks. The main project emphasis is on training of our engineers, but it doesn't stop it there. The program is open to anyone within the firm wishing to further develop their skills. After spending this winter developing the program, I presented it to our senior partners this past April. After a roundtable discussion, the program was unanimously approved. The program has begun to be put into operation. We now have 4 senior mechanical partners mentoring 4 engineers, including 2 interns. Along with the engineering mentors, we also have coaching taking place within the engineering and drafting departments. A new engineer that graduated this past May from Gonzaga said to his mentor that he was super stoked about having a mentor and was really excited for his future at MW. A drafter shared with me that he was excited and also inspired about all the positive changes that he saw happening around the office. Even though our program has just begun, we are already seeing invaluable benefits being paid by mentoring and coaching our staff. We are all excited for what the future holds at MW with our new staff development program. I would like to thank the EOP staff for this amazing year, Dr. Joe Albert, Bridget Piper, and Katie Blackburn. I also want to send out a big thank you to my fellow EOP participants. It's been a great year getting to know each one of you, and I wish you much success in all of the upcoming years. Kurtwood Gaines, my mentor. We got together every couple weeks. We had a great time talking about my project, sports, family, and Gonzaga basketball. Thank you, Kurt. Finally, I want to say thank you to MW for this amazing opportunity that was given to me. Thank you. I would like to introduce Shannon Brown. She's a scientist at Jubilant Hollister Steer. Also, please join me in congratulating Shannon on the birth of her daughter, Katie. Katie was born on May 12th, the day after our last class. Shannon Brown.
Thank you, John, and John is right. I have a new long-term stretch project in front of me, and you'll get to meet her after we're all done. But back to the class project. Like John said, I am a research and development scientist at Jubilant Hollister Steer, and as such, I'm part of a team that focuses on the allergy side of the business at Jubilant. One way that we do this is working with the manufacturing group to improve the processes by which we take things that people are allergic to, things like pollen, animal hair and dander, insect venom, and make that into something that doctors can use to test for allergies and to treat allergies. A few years ago, we turned our attention to one of our key sellers, which is house dust mite. Now, the manufacturing process starts with mite whole bodies, and these are cultured and harvested at Hollister Steer. Those are made into a very soupy looking extract and then purified into a final product. And I can pass these around as examples if you want to take a look. Thanks, Liz. So what we wanted to do is improve the process, and my colleague identified a new piece of equipment that could help us take those mite bodies to that crude extract. We performed some initial proof of concept development studies on a laboratory scale piece of equipment, and we had favorable results. The new process had multiple potential benefits. It was more efficient and could reduce the technician hands-on time, and it also allowed us to scale up the process, thinking of future growth in our business. The next step was really to apply this concept to the manufacturing scale system, validate the process, prove that we could consistently manufacture a safe and effective product, and implement this into our commercial production. Now, instead of handing the project off to a manufacturing specialist or our project management team, I stayed on as the project manager, and this became my stretch project for the Emerging Leaders Program. As with all projects, I knew there were going to be some challenges as we went into this one. First, the project had actually been going on and off and on and off again for several years, depending on how our priorities shifted. And as we kicked off the project, or re-kicked off the project in January, I could sense that people were already frustrated, already burned out, and already spread thin with other commitments. So how was I, as a project manager, going to keep people motivated and to keep the buy-in both from management and from our team? And so this was one question that I kept in mind every time I went to our Emerging Leaders class. The second challenge is that in our business, which is decades and decades old and hasn't changed that much in decades and decades, we are now facing some regulatory changes in our industry, and the legacy products are now, when you make changes to those, are now being required to meet the current standards versus the standards of, say, the 1950s or the 1960s. So we make a small change here, but it opens up this huge can of worms, and how do we deal with that? And as a company, we're still trying to assess the impact and the workload involved with that change. And this has led to many project scope changes and many extensions to the timeline, which of course you all know is frustrating to everyone at all levels. The Emerging Leaders Program was a great opportunity to develop skills to manage some of these challenges. A couple of lessons that struck me in particular were the self-reflection and self-regulation aspects of the emotional intelligence class. Primarily, I learned that I need to better manage my own response, my response to stress, my response to changes, the response to those things I don't like, so that I can create an environment that is open to dialogue and sets up people for success. And so that's one of the things I'll be, as I'm moving forward, really focusing on with this project and some others. And the other thing that ran through every lesson was that obviously communication is key. We all know that, setting expectations, setting clear goals, and the consequences for those goals are important. And communicating change, because there's always going to be change. No matter how detailed you think you have it outlined, there's always change. And you have to have a plan for this change, and you have to have a plan for the transition, and that has to be communicated. And of course, most of communication is about listening, and I certainly can do that better. And so I will take those 2 or 3 things and really focus on that as I move forward with this project. And of course, I would like to thank the organizers of the program and my fellow emerging leaders for the wonderful dialogue that we had throughout the year and the relationships that were built. So that was one of the key takeaways from the class, was just those relationships and the dialogue. And I'd like to thank my leadership team and my coworkers at Jubilant Hollister Steer, and my husband as well at home, who have been patient as I practice my skills and grow into a more effective leader. So, thank you. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. He is the project manager with Integris Architecture, where he has been active in the K-12 and embassy work. Please welcome Forrest Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. Architecture and construction have changed a lot over the last 100 years, but probably the most in the last 20 years. In the old days, we produced drawings by hand, working at drafting tables. Our drawings were In general, conveying a design intention for the builders. Sometimes we would include detailed drawings of a portion of the project. The builder would take those drawings and somehow build amazing buildings. Those builders understood the design intention and created these masterpieces that we enjoy today. But today, because of technological changes, our contractors are specializing in specific aspects of construction. The technological advancements in mechanical systems and electrical systems, even the building envelopes, require them to select just that particular aspect to specialize in. Also, the increased labor costs and construction material costs, increased competition for these projects has required that the contractors bid their projects based specifically on what they see in the drawings. That, in turn, has affected how architects and designers produce the documents. No longer can we draw drawings that just present design intention. We have to be far more specific with our details and our specifications and our drawings. So we too have kept up with technology. Today we use computers. We work in, generally cramped quarters, sitting behind a computer screen all day long. And we use really cool software that integrates the building structure, the building envelopes. We can show mechanical systems, electrical systems, everything that's part of that building, what makes a building. We can look at different schemes for building envelopes. And it's all in a three-dimensional computer program. And then from that program, we develop our very detailed drawings that the contractor uses to build from. Lean architecture is a project delivery method that focuses on process management. It's not about omitting information or producing less drawings. Rather, it's about identifying what drawings or what details add value and identifying those that don't add value and eliminating those that don't have value. For my stretch project, I'm looking at the principles behind lean architecture and how we can incorporate some of those principles in how Integris Architecture produces our documents. I'm working with a group of peers to reduce the variation in how we produce work and what we produce, to identify potential barriers that we face either in the workplace or in the process that we use to create the documents. I'm going to use my leadership skills that I've learned through the Emerging Leaders Program to implement change in Integris Architecture, how we do these processes. I want to thank the Emerging Leaders Program, Dr. Albert, and Bridget, and Katie. It's been a wonderful session. I want to thank Mike Taylor, who was my mentor. And of course, I want to thank Integris Architecture for making this possible for me to participate. Our next speaker is Teresa Eckert. She's the Director of Planning and Engineering at the Spokane International Airport, Phelps Field, and the Airport Business Park. Her group implements and manages the planning, design, and construction of all airport projects.
Thank you, Forrest. Okay, well, Spokane Airport operates, as Forrest just said, Spokane International Airport, the Airport Business Park, and Phelps Field. We execute between $30 and $45 million of capital improvement projects each year while continuing to operate the airport and service our customers. Has anyone here ever worked on a project or had input into a project? You can raise your hand. Joe's working on a project. He's eager and committed, and he sets his ladder and gets to work. There's no time to waste. When Joe starts to fall a little behind, he works harder and climbs faster. When Joe figures out a smarter way to work, then he really makes good progress. Then he reaches his goal ahead of schedule and under budget. It's time to celebrate, right? But there's no balloons for Joe. When he looks around, he sees all the other project stakeholders he forgot about. Joe did a great job climbing the ladder, but he leaned it against the wrong wall. Stakeholder input is critical. We don't want to end up like Joe, putting money, time, and effort into climbing the wrong wall. My stretch project is to introduce a project delivery system to Spokane airports that includes a systematic process for incorporating stakeholder input throughout the project. Key project stakeholders could include airport staff, consultants, contractors, tenants, agencies, regional partners, and the traveling public. Stakeholder input is important, but so is the timeliness of that input. Our friend Joe works in the airport maintenance department and has a lot of institutional knowledge as well as knowledge of his craft. Joe has a great idea that could improve the end result of the project and reduce costs. If he shares this idea in the planning stage, the cost is $1, and most of the benefit of his idea goes to the project. If he doesn't come to the meetings until the design stage, or if he doesn't think of the idea until later, it costs about $10 to implement his idea, and typically it still benefits the project. Maybe Joe doesn't realize the need for his idea until the project's under construction. At the construction stage, his idea costs $100 to implement, and there's very little benefit to the project at this stage. After the project is all over, his great idea may cost $1,000 and is probably a missed opportunity for his organization. In general, as we progress through a project, an idea or input becomes less effective because of the impacts made by the change. These impacts are often increased costs and delays to the schedule. Timely stakeholder input and an understanding of these impacts on a project is only one of the project management concepts that can be shared through training. The elements of my stretch project are selecting a beta project to implement this process, identifying the beta team members, providing project management training, developing standard project management tools, documents, and processes, scheduling multiple lesson learned sessions to refine the beta project, and after continuous improvement during the beta project, implementing the project delivery system enterprise-wide. My beta project is getting underway, and I expect to implement our new project delivery system within the organization in 2013. I want to thank the Emerging Leaders Program for helping me expand my leadership perspective and giving me the tools to continue to learn and grow as a leader. I also want to thank my boss, Larry Crowder, CEO of Spokane Airports, for encouraging me to pursue this opportunity and supporting me in my stretch project. I can't say enough about the people I worked with, my cohort. I learned so much from the people that were teaching us, but maybe even more from the people that were in the class with me. And last but not least, Pam Lind was my mentor through the project, and I really appreciate your insight. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our final presenter. and Vita Mishra, Senior Financial Analyst at Hecla Mining Company. And Vita's work involves evaluating and valuing acquisition targets and companies for Hecla.
Good evening, all of you. And thanks, Teresa, for the introduction. You pronounced my name right. She was very nervous about it. Oops. Before I start, I'd like to tell you all a little bit about Hecla. Hecla is one of the oldest silver mining companies in the US with a rich mining history that goes back to 1891. The primary metal we mine is silver. In fact, nearly 30% of the silver produced in the US is mined by Hecla. Today, Hecla operates 2 world-class silver mines, Lucky Friday in Idaho and Greens Creek in Alaska. We have established ourselves as the lowest cost primary silver producer with a rich portfolio of properties in world-class mining districts. So, silver. Silver is a very fascinating metal and has very unique properties. It's a precious metal used as a currency and a hedge against inflation. Silver is the best electrical and thermal conductor of all metals, a property that makes it ideal for use in electronics. It also has medicinal properties that have many modern-day applications. Overall, silver has many sophisticated uses, ranging from electronics to construction to water purification and many, many more. So the STRETCH project I chose for my Emerging Leaders program was to develop a comprehensive understanding of the silver markets. It all began when our CEO, Mr. Phil Baker, was asked to present, or rather invited to present, on silver at the world's largest mining convention. This marked the beginning of 2 intense months of research and analysis on the silver market. This research addressed 3 broad areas: silver supply, investment and industrial demand, and finally, a forecast of silver price over the next 5 years. This research and analysis was condensed into a presentation that I gave internally to Hecla employees. Mr. Baker presented our work in March this year to a very enthusiastic mining community in Toronto. This project has given me a long-term vision for the development of silver research and analysis team at Hecla. The objective of this team would be to compile data from industry sources and conduct original research in order to enhance Hecla's understanding of the silver markets. For instance, we are now trying to understand the science behind silver's unique properties that makes it the metal of choice for use in electronics. This dynamic and evolving project will help Hecla develop a long-term view of silver markets and a short-term forecast of silver prices. My journey through this project has been very exciting. I have delved into complex details of silver supply and demand and honed my analytical skills further. This project has given me an opportunity to understand the strategic issues and supply-demand complexities that drive silver prices. I'm looking forward to continue to progress and improve Hecla's and my own knowledge of this ever-changing silver market. This project would not have spread its wings without Phil Baker and Don Poirier, my boss, mentor, and my support. I would like to thank them for their infectious enthusiasm, unwavering support, and constant encouragement throughout this project and my career. I would also like to acknowledge the contributions of Alan McPhee to my career. He's an inspiration, the perfect mentor, and a very dear friend. Thank you to Barry Nelson, our Director HR, for facilitating this program for me. And I would like to thank Sarah Thane. She's not here with us right now, but she was a big support throughout the course of this project. Her diligent work, support, and analysis were extremely helpful, and I'm looking forward to working with her on this in the future. And finally, I could not have achieved anything without Vivek Patil, my best friend, my husband, and my best critic. And finally, thank you to the Emerging Leaders Program team, Dr. Joe Albert, Katie, and Bridget Piper, and of course, my ELP mentor, Linda Javet. I have benefited immensely by interacting with the faculty, learning leadership mantras of all the guests and CEO speakers, and of course, all my fellow participants. I wish you all a very bright journey ahead. Thank you.
Thanks again to all of our Emerging Leaders participants. This has really been a stellar group and a fantastic year, and I think you can all see that by listening to their work. Our last speaker of the evening is someone that many of you know, and a few lucky people have maybe even got to learn from him in class. Dr. Joe Albert is really the founder of the Emerging Leaders Program, and I could stand up here and list all of his accolades and accomplishments, but that would likely embarrass him before he comes up to speak to you all. But I will tell you that Joe is a mentor to all of us in so many ways, and we're so lucky to get to learn from him in this program. Please help me welcome Dr. Joe Albert.
This is scary, huh? No notes. Uh-oh. I got a half an hour, right? What? Okay, I want to complain about athletics at Gonzaga. I had an idea. Wouldn't it be cool if we had the Emerging Leader participants' pictures for Derek Rivio and Dan Dickett? I think it'd be a nice touch. Or maybe the mentors, I don't know. Kirk, what do you think? Would that be good? Yeah. Hey, congratulations. Thank you, Katie. It's been a wonderful group. And I'm just going to talk briefly about the program, but tell you stories, because that's where we started, right, last fall. About a week or two ago, I was contacted by Mike Adolphe in the Community Development Office of the City of Spokane. And he approached me with some other community leaders about trying to invest a little bit more in community leadership development. And he said, do you have any ideas? And I'm like, well, hell yeah, I got a lot of ideas, you know. And I was thinking back to this program actually quite a bit. And one of the issues they have is that frequently they'll get people that take on a neighborhood leadership role or a community leadership role with more of an axe to grind. They have an issue that they want to sort of push. Well, that ain't leadership. And so we talked a little bit about maybe how we could grow leaders. And what was in my mind is this program. People with the right aspiration, ability, level of engagement that companies bring to us, and then our job is to invest in them and help them grow and develop. And as you can tell today, it's just been really a great program, certainly for us, but hopefully for the organizations as well. And so I think this investment in community leadership is essential. And as Bridget said, community organizations and not-for-profit organizations are in sore need of just good leadership, good boardsmanship, and so forth. Contrasting that need and the lack of maybe community leadership that we often see, about 2 hours ago, I had a meeting with an old friend, most of you probably have heard of or know, Bill Robinson. Bill used to be the president of Whitworth University now. And he's one of my favorite people. He's just a great guy to be around. He's inspirational in every way. He's an excellent speaker. And he's helping us. We're going through a little bit of some strategic planning and change in our leadership program, doctoral all the way through our undergraduate program. And I just wanted to see if he would help us with some facilitation and some thinking more than anything, you know. And I said, tell me a little bit about, you know, when you first started here. And he and Spitzer, Bob Spitzer, used to be the president here at the university. And the two of them were this great pair. And we used to have them speak at some of our events. They were a riot together. I said, well, is it always like that with the presidents? He said, no. He said, when I first got here, there was almost a competitive feel between the various educational institutions, Eastern, WSU, GU, and Whitworth. And he said that, you know, I waited and I invested in those relationships. And over time, what's emerged now, and I think to the benefit of the Spokane community, is a series of collaborations between the universities that I think will benefit the community as a whole. I just love the way we connect with each other and sort of collaborate. That's leadership. And what Bill demonstrated today, and I didn't know the sort of the background there, was how much sort of a selflessness, but a commitment to the growth of the community, the betterment of the community that Bill brings to the table. He's an example for me of kind of what it's about in terms of leadership. The participants, you were sent to us with promise and hope, a great deal of experience, certainly, and success. But this program isn't about awarding you or rewarding you for that effort that you've shown getting there. It's also about what's to come. And when you've come to us, our hope is that we can offer you a space, an environment, exposure to just fantastic speakers, resources that will help you grow and learn and become those people that make such a difference in this community that it is transformed through your effort, through your investment in that. We thank you for what you've brought to us, but more importantly, we're excited about what it's going to mean for the future in this community. That's your future now. We're looking forward to see what differences you make, and both in your organizations, but also in the community. So we thank you, and I want to especially thank the mentors. I know we're going to thank them in a minute, but I know so many of you, and I'm so grateful to your continued kind of investment in people and how much it makes a difference in our participants, but also in the organization of emerging leaders. So thank you, and to the CEOs, the HR people that have invested also in this, we are very grateful for that. So I'm going to shut up, but I wish the participants just the best and look forward to what you have to offer in our communities in the future. So thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Before we end tonight, there, like Joe said, are many people that deserve recognition and thanks for their commitment to the growth of the leaders that you've heard from tonight, and really to the Emerging Leaders Program as a whole. Our mentors, if you're here, please stand when I say your name so that we can thank you. Jeff Adams from Horizon Credit Union. Kurt Woodgains, Jubilant Hollister Steer. Pam Lund, Girl Scouts of Eastern Washington. Gerard Fisher, Providence Hospitals. Linda Gervais from Avista Utilities. I believe Preston had to step out, but Preston Potratz from Integris Architecture. And two who couldn't make it tonight, Dr. Janet Golickson, who's the newly named president of Spokane Falls Community College, and Mike Taylor from Taylor Engineering. So thank you. We'd also like to thank the ELP alumni who played a role in participant interviews and class sessions throughout the year. All of the presenters we had and the CEOs who visited, it takes a community to make this happen, and we're so thankful for your role in that. Finally, if I can have Joe and Bridget come up here to help hand out certificates. And we'll bring the Emerging Leaders Class of 2012 one last time. Just going to announce the name, and we can clap as they come up, but I'll just keep announcing as we go. So, Liz Andrews of Vista Utilities. You can get your certificate. Shannon Brown, Jubilant Hollister Steer. Kathy Conway, Horizon Credit Union. Sarah Everett, Gonzaga University. Teresa Eckerd, Spokane Airports. Anvita Mishra, Hecla Mining Company. Forrest Shannon, Integris Architecture. And John Vicentainer, MW Consulting Engineers. Let's give them all one last round of applause.